Every one of us is living a story. Some chapters are joyful and light. Others may be heavy, confusing, and filled with trials we never expected. Life has a way of bringing experiences we didn't plan for. Sometimes through the choices of others, sometimes through circumstances beyond our control, and sometimes in ways that feel part of a divine design we doubt or don't yet understand. In those moments, the question that comes for us is, how do I do this? What do I do with all this pain? This podcast exists because stories matter. Our histories matter. Not sensational, not exploitative, but deeply human. This space is not about glorifying pain or sitting in victimhood. It's about learning from one another. It's about hearing how ordinary people have faced extraordinary circumstances and found ways to rebuild, find happiness, and thrive. Because when someone tells their story, it reminds the rest of us that we're not alone in ours. If you have walked through a difficult phase in your life, your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you are willing to share what helped you endure, rebuild, or heal, we would be honored to hear it. Contact us at theedifygroup.com. This is Hungry for Healing. Real people, real pain, real peace. I'm Becky Wengreen, a marriage and family therapist, sharing stories that nourish, edify, and heal, reminding us that even in heavy darkness, we can expect light to come. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hungry for Healing. Today, I am here with a colleague, and I'm so excited that I have met Niki. This is Niki Olsen. She is an LCMHC, which is a licensed clinical mental health counselor. And so we are in similar fields, and we've been able to have some fun conversations, and we both have podcasts, and I'm happy to have her here today to talk about her aspects of healing. And so, Niki, let's just dive into what you love to teach, and I'd love the listeners to know, what drew you into this mental health field, and if there's personal experiences that you have, your own healing, or something that you've witnessed that make this work really important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a therapist in Utah for almost 18 years. And I started out when I graduated high school, I went to school to be a police officer. And I was like, I'm going to be a police officer. So I went into criminal justice. And then I started kind of discovering social work. And I was like, oh, I kind of like helping people more, right? I think I want to go into more of that helping profession. So got my bachelor's in social work and then realized it's not a great place to just end with a bachelor's in social work. A master's degree is kind of you
Right.
like the natural next step that you do. And
Uh-huh.
I always said when I was younger, there's no way I'm getting a master's degree. Like I'm done with school after a bachelor's. And I just kept going and I'm glad I did. I graduated with my master's before I had kids. And so that was wonderful. And I was able to kind of go into therapy from there. And I live down in Blanding, Utah. So it's the southeast corner of Utah in the Four Corners area down there.
Mhm.
And I work for my day job. I work for Utah Navajo Health System. So we are a federally qualified healthcare center that provides comprehensive medical, dental, vision, behavioral health across the Navajo Nation. And so I get to work with medical providers and we do work within dental and vision with our behavioral health, and we screen for depression at every visit for every type of visit. And then I run our mobile crisis outreach team within the Navajo Nation area. I also run our school-based mental health program, and I developed an integrative behavioral health technician program where I have behavioral health technicians housed in the medical side that help when our depression screenings are positive to go into the medical visits, dental visits, vision visits, and be able to assess risk, get connected with resources. So I kind of do a lot of things in within that field. And that's what I do during the day. So I do a lot of supervision that way. I only do therapy about 1 day a week now
Mm.
and with all of that supervision. And then about 6 years ago, I kind of felt this nudge spiritually to do something more, which was kind of weird for me because I love my job. I have a great company that I work for. I absolutely love doing therapy. love the people I work with. And it's interesting when you start learning about revelation and seeking revelation, God will do some amazing things with your life. And on the Navajo reservation, we work with traditional counselors. So we have what we call Western medicine would be the therapist like me. And then we have traditional counselors who do traditional Navajo healing with our patients. So we work alongside traditional counselors who would assess they have their own sort of DSM way of assessing things, right? And their assessment of why somebody might be experiencing symptoms of anxiety would be very different than mine, and their treatment modality would be very different. But both together are so healing.
Yeah.
And so they do prayers and ceremonies and songs. We have hogans at every one of our clinics that they do. And we work closely together in that treatment, which got me thinking about how well, I have a really awesome traditional counselor that I work with, and he often will sort of translate things to me in Christianity terms. He'll say, "Okay, this is our story of the twin warriors, and this is your story of Adam and Eve, and this is how they go together, and this is why they work together." And so it got me thinking about how I could look at mental health through a spiritual lens and create deeper healing and meaning in that way as well. So I started studying, I use a mindfulness approach called mind body bridging. And it's got me thinking about I started studying about how that related to the fall of Adam and Eve and opposition and how our brain works with the spirit and things. And so I just started studying and it really aligned with what I love to do. So I started a business. It's called LDS Mental Health Co. And I do coaching online. I have a group membership where I teach these mental health skills through a spiritual lens, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's wonderful. And when I went back to school much later. I've only had 8 or 9 years under my belt as far as seeing clients. I've had
Yeah.
a lot of personal experiences, but so much of psychology does align with, in our faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with the plan of happiness, right?
Yeah. So much.
So much. And
Yeah.
so, do you remember exactly when it was that you started just aligning? I mean, you kind of alluded to that. The Adam and Eve story kind of aligned with the story, a cultural story, that you were working with. And
I
how did it come to be?
I feel like I came line upon line, really, like, I think when you start receiving revelation, in my belief is that if you start receiving revelation and you seek for it, it just comes line upon line. And so as I just started studying more about the fall of Adam and Eve, and I was in my certification process and with some modalities and learning more about that, and I was like, man, these just align really well together.
Mhm.
So as I was just kind of studying both ways, God just showed me how they work together. And as I started teaching and exploring more of that, I started just seeing so many similarities with it. So it wasn't like this moment or like an aha moment or here's all the information. And I feel like I still get revelation with things. I still, talks
Yeah.
come and different things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that aligns with this so perfectly. And so yeah, it's just ongoing all the time.
Yeah. Any other concepts that are a part of your framework that you'd like to go into?
Absolutely, yeah. So the natural man is a concept that I really use in this modality. So in a mindfulness approach, in kind of the therapy side of it, mindfulness approach is not about changing what thoughts you're having in your mind. That's more of like a
Mm.
cognitive behavioral approach. And a mindfulness approach is changing what part of your brain you're having the thoughts from, which naturally changes how you're having the thoughts.
Mm.
So that's when I started studying that, I was like, oh, that's very interesting because when my thoughts are aligned with the spirit, with the Holy Ghost, they also change, right? But when my thoughts are aligned with opposition, or maybe I'm getting temptation from Satan, like my thoughts seem very different, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that kind of aligns. That's very different. So I started studying this concept of the natural man and opposition. And so in our religion, we believe that Adam and Eve partook of the fruit of opposition, and that enacted opposition in all things, including inside of us. And the scriptures call that the natural man or the carnal mind. And the natural man or the carnal mind is the opposition to God, which creates agency and choice, but it also creates opposing emotions. Without opposition inside of us, we don't have joy and pain, right? We don't have these opposing emotions in us. And so because we can feel pain, we feel joy,
Right.
right? If
Mhm.
we don't know that to the extent that we feel pain, we feel the opposite side of joy as
Yes.
well. And so I really loved that concept of studying emotions through opposition, right? And that we're supposed to feel positive and negative emotions. That sometimes people get caught up in this concept of, well, if I'm a spiritual, faithful person, then I must only feel and see and experience positive. And that's absolutely not true. The plan of happiness, the plan of salvation in our religion is about experiencing opposition, but using our agency to choose to align with God while we're experiencing those negative experiences, negative emotions. Maybe our bodies are susceptible to ailment. Our people can use their agency unrighteously, which can cause us pain. And we just live in a world with opposition, right? And so we're going to experience that. And we were provided a savior with an enabling power, a power to help us endure living in a fallen world. When we align with him in our brains, in our bodies, and in our spirits, then we can receive his power to heal, to endure, to um, help strengthen and grow and become the person who we're meant to become. And so all of that aligns with it. You can explain all of that in brain science and you can explain all of that spiritually, right? And so I
Yes.
just love how it kind of goes back and forth, and we can dive more into like the natural man and what that looks like for women or and men. Mostly I work with women, so I always say women, but it's the same for men. But
Yeah, well, yeah, let's do it. Like, tell me, unpack what it would be like for the natural man thinking pattern in just an everyday afternoon, like just
yeah,
on a weekday for a busy woman. What's that gonna look like?
yes. So imagine that the natural man is supposed to influence you in the opposite way that God would influence you. So we could categorize this very simplified, but we can have thoughts when we're aligned with the natural man. It's not that God goes away, but God is a respecter of agency. So if we choose to be in alignment with that natural man opposition state within us, the scriptures talk about how God respects that agency and will allow us to be just our own earthly brain, our own earthly thoughts, just our own earthly abilities, right? And it's not that God goes away, but we choose to put up like a pavilion and block that spirituality in that moment, right?
Mhm.
And if we're not aware that we're doing that, we might have difficult situations, painful situations that cause us to have that pavilion be put up. But we, through our agency, need to remove that, right? And so when we're in that natural man state and we have that pavilion blocking, right? Then our thoughts sound very different than if that pavilion was removed and we're in what I call the divine state. We're in that connected state with God. And so I'll kind of go back and forth and show you what that would sound like or look like. If you are just one afternoon and you get caught into that triggered into that natural man state, some of the thoughts you might having are you might go into this survival voice like, I'm behind, I'm dropping the ball, I can't handle this, you know, and you have this tightness in your chest. You might feel like your thoughts are racing. You might start snapping at your kids or scrolling on your phone because you just can't decide what to do first. Feels very scattered, right?
Mhm.
Now, if we're able to remove that pavilion through, I teach mental health skills to remove that pavilion and decrease that body tension, that mind clutter, and return that connection of who we're having our thoughts with, your thoughts would sound more like, I'm safe, I'm okay, take one thing at a time, I'm with you, you got this. They sound very different, right? There's an urgency behind the natural man in that, right? Or there could be maybe you have more of a control type natural man voice, which would sound something like, if you just try harder, you could make everything work, or just hold everything together, or
Mhm.
don't let people see that you're struggling. You can get irritated easily when your plans get interrupted. The natural man thinks that control equals safety. So it confuses things and will make you think you need to stay here and control things in order to feel safe. But in reality, when if we can remove that pavilion, then God can give us very different can influence us, our thoughts very differently,
Mhm.
right? Like, "You don't
Mhm.
have to carry this alone. I've got you. Let me help you." Right? Or there's the shame voice of the natural man. Like, "You're not a good mom. You're a bad person. Other women are doing this better than you. Look at them. You'll never be good enough. What's the point in trying?" So there's that shame voice
Oh,
that the
yeah.
natural man comes with.
Yeah, and
Or
that's a strong, powerful.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it. The natural man's job is to affect how we see our identity, that
Mhm.
we lose our worth and value all of a sudden if we certain things happen or people think certain things about us. And that's just not true. We're not connected to that truth anymore, that God gave us our worth and value before we came here and nobody can destroy that, right? But we're just disconnected from feeling it and knowing it in that moment, and it feels overwhelming, and we make choices based on that thought process that aren't healthy for us. So we might start doom scrolling, we might start eating to cope with it. We're yelling at people, we're shutting down, we're binging on things, and we create self-sabotage moments with
Mhm.
that, right?
Mhm.
That aren't in alignment with who we want to be or how we want to be, and then just confirm, "See, you aren't good enough. See, your worth and value isn't where you thought it would be." So you're just in this cycle that the natural man is confirming things and having you act in that way.
Right, and it sounds like you're describing all those survival responses
Mhm.
that we just automatically go to, and then we end up self-sabotaging, just like you said. And
Yep.
so,
Yeah.
where does our lack of faith come into that? If we have
Yeah.
anxiety and we have worry, does that mean we don't have faith? I mean, what does that
I
mean?
love that question. Yep, I love that question because that is the first thought that the natural man, of course, is gonna wanna make you feel.
Right.
Like, now you've lost your faith, and it's not that you're faithless or you've lost faith, it's just that you're not connected to the power of it. So you don't remember it, you don't feel
Mm,
it in that moment.
mhm,
You're blocking it. So internally, we become disconnected from our divine spirit that we were given from our heavenly parents that lives inside of us, right? So we don't feel or remember that faith, right? And so it's not that it went away, it's just that you're disconnected from it in that moment.
mhm,
Does that kinda make
mhm.
sense?
I love that. Yeah, that we just need to be still for a minute and remove the pavilion, like you said,
Yep. Uh-huh.
and reconnect.
And all your faith
Reconnect
is there.
ourselves to the source, which was what you were
Yep.
talking about before. Where is the source of my thinking? Is it a
Yeah.
spiritual source or is it the natural man trying to
Mhm.
pull me from my spiritual source? Which can be
Exactly.
so confusing and so discouraging and hopeless and
Mhm.
disempowering, right? All
Exactly.
those things. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is beautiful stuff. I love that. What do you help people with when they say, God doesn't talk to me? Because that's something that happens so much is and I see it a lot too, and I'm sure that you treat a lot of people that aren't
Mhm.
of our faith, as I do too, and
Yeah.
that's a hard question. How do you talk to people about reconnecting in
Yeah.
that way when maybe they don't know how or they've never had that experience?
I often use the analogy of, like, if you wanted to have this intimate conversation with a friend, but you guys decided to go to a very loud concert to have this intimate conversation, you're not gonna hear your friend very well. It's not gonna be a very useful, productive conversation, right?
Mhm,
When we're in our natural man state, it's like we're at that concert. The clutter in our brain is so loud, right? Our body is responding to that, and it's creating so much overwhelm in our mind and body. It makes it difficult to hear what God is saying. It's not that God isn't there, it makes it difficult to hear or even feel that God loves us. And even if you think about like depression, it really numbs our ability to feel in that
mhm,
moment, right? So there's a couple things. One is teaching them that there's other ways to know that God is there. Sometimes we need to use a different sense. If we can't hear God, can we see God, right? Can we learn about God? If we can't feel God, can we hear him, right? Learning and developing different ways to have a relationship with God, that you know how if someone loses a certain sense, it like enhances another sense for
yeah,
them?
yeah,
So finding that sense that is right now enhanced for you, right? Okay, if you want to hear God, but your hearing sense is decreased because of the chaos that's happening around you and internally in you, can you look for God when you're reading the scriptures? Can you
Mhm.
learn about God and learn about who his true identity is and what he truly believes about you and develop that sense instead,
Mhm.
right? But the other side of that is learning to use skills to quiet your mind and body, right? And so that you aren't at the concert anymore having this conversation, right?
Mhm.
You're in a quiet room where you both could whisper and still hear each other,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so remembering it's not that God left you, it's not that God doesn't love you, it's that we're learning different ways in that moment to understand him, know him, and this is an opportunity to learn how to care for yourself, right? That maybe we've had situations in our lives that are causing this chaos, and we with our agency and choice need to go learn how to manage that. Elder Holland talked about this in one of his really it's a pretty famous talk. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but he talked about how if you had appendicitis, you would go to a doctor and pray,
Yeah.
right?
Is that like a broken vessel?
Yes, the broken vessel.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. That
Yes.
one, right? Same thing with mental health is what he's saying, right? Like
Right.
you can use your faith and you can pray, but God provided mental health professionals and doctors here to help you heal. And for me, I believe that mental health skills connect you with the Savior, right? So the Savior is the ultimate healer, right? But when you're using these skills, that's when that pavilion moves and you're connecting with him and he's providing that healing for you because
Exactly.
you're using these skills to connect with him and
Right.
receive that healing.
The agency piece of this is so big, how powerful our own agency is.
Yeah. Yep.
It is so, so powerful and really coming to grips with, I have to use this in a really good way. It's not Heavenly Father's doing, it's
Right.
mine.
Mhm. Yes.
I'm cutting him off. I am the one not listening. I'm the one, that needs to do the work. And so I love the thought of removing yourself from the spiritual noise, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
You don't go to a noisy spiritually or a spiritually dumbing place to try and
Mhm.
hear God.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got to put yourself in a place that you can hear him or see him, and many people connect that with nature or with there's so many ways you could see God.
Well, and 2, when you experience trauma or you're in depression, you're in anxiety, oftentimes we don't want to feel. So what we do is we cram our life full of things so that we don't have to feel or we don't have a moment of quietness or stillness, right? We're standing in line and we
Mhm.
pull out our cell phones and we start scrolling so that there's constant input into our brains, right? And I like the analogy of a snow globe that if you take a snow globe and you shake it and you just keep shaking it, you never get to experience the snow globe, right? In order to experience the beauty of a snow globe, you have to set it down, right? Well, yeah, it gets shaken up again, but then you set it down. That's the same thing with our brains and our bodies. Like if we're constantly shaking everything up because we have all this input coming in, we don't get to experience the joy of hearing and living and feeling God because we're constantly in the chaos and we're not letting Him in. We
Yeah.
have to set things down. We have to learn to be okay with silence. We have to learn to be okay with boredom. We have to learn to not need a dopamine hit every 5 seconds, right? It's okay to not
Mhm.
open your phone and scroll when you're at a red light, right? You can just sit in the silence. It's okay to not need your phone to fall asleep. It's okay to come home and not have anything and just sit and be in silence and not have to turn the TV on to have it in the background. Like learning
Mhm.
to just be in the quiet, which we don't do very often these days.
Right. And can you think of other examples that shake the globe? It
Mhm.
sounds like it's a form of overfunctioning.
Yeah, so anything could shake it. So somebody else's agency could shake up our globe, right? Somebody who does something to us unrighteously, meaning like maybe hurts us, right? That can
Mhm.
shake up your globe.
Yep.
It can be things out of our control,
Right.
right? You
Mhm.
can have a tornado come take your house down. That would shake up your globe, right? That's out of your control. You had no choice whether that happened. And that's going to cause distress within you mentally,
Mhm.
right? It can be of our own choices. Maybe
Right.
we're not making healthy choices ourselves, and that can shake it up, right? Or we might just have physical ailments, right? That maybe we're going through cancer. Maybe we just got a chronic illness diagnosis. Maybe we're just experiencing a cold, right? That could shake it up and do those
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
Or just general life. Like sometimes we just cram our life full of a whole bunch of good things, and that can shake it up,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Yeah.
like one after another. We don't set boundaries. We don't say no. We don't prioritize things, and so it just becomes too much. We're over scrolling on social media can shake it up, right?
Mhm.
And maybe we're watching too much of the news, and that can shake it up, right?
Right.
So lots of things can be shaking up your snow globe, and if you have a little bit of each of those shaking it up, it's not really settling down at any point, right? And you're always feeling that and always experiencing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sounds like the same thing as being emotionally flooded
Yeah,
or
exactly.
emotionally dysregulated.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and that's just another term that we can use for just being it's just overwhelmed, it's too much, it's flooded, and
Mhm.
maybe we do need to take that step back and just do the be still thing, which is hard,
Mhm.
especially if you feel out of control.
Mhm.
Being still is the last thing you wanna do.
Especially if you experience trauma, your brain is gonna try and convince you that it feels unsafe,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's where mental health skills really come in, like learning to offer yourself compassion, learning to neutralize your thoughts, using modalities like accelerated resolution therapy or EMDR to neutralize how your subconscious brain is reacting towards these things. So there's
Mhm.
lots of brain science in it, right, that causes you to react this way, but then is the disconnect for you spiritually as well. Like if you're disconnected emotionally and physically, you are also disconnected spiritually.
So here's another question
Yeah.
for you. So
Yeah.
from a practical standpoint, when someone is spiraling,
Mhm.
right? And we may have kind of covered this, but I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure that we really hit
Yeah.
it, or highly reactive.
Yeah.
What does it look like to change the
Yeah.
source, to change the thought, to how does the shift, like, in real time happen? Is that something
Mhm.
that we have to consciously do? Can it
Mhm.
be learned? Does it get easier?
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so let me give you a couple analogies. Changing it with a mindfulness approach, this is all kind of built around a mindfulness approach, is who are you having your thoughts with, not what the thoughts are, okay? So, what we wanna do is change who we're having them with. So, spiritually, I don't wanna have my thoughts influenced by the natural man, I want them influenced by the spirit. Brain science speaking, we want to have thoughts in our prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning brain, not our reactionary brain, default brain, lots of names we have for that, right?
Right.
That part, our survival brain, our amygdala, all of those parts of our brains are reactionary. They are looking for a problem. They're looking for something's gone wrong. What is it? It's usually me. I'm the problem. So I got to fix me. And really, there's nothing wrong in the first place. So now we're on a wild goose chase to fix ourselves when we weren't broken in the first place, right? So we don't want to have thoughts with those dysregulated states, right? So it's who is driving your bus of your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Do you want that dysregulated part of your brain or the natural man driving the bus of your thoughts? Or do you want God and your prefrontal cortex and the Holy Ghost and your divinity inside of you driving your bus, right? Your thoughts naturally change when you change your state. So I have to use the analogy of glasses too. Like if I put on orange tinted glasses, everything's tinted orange,
Sure.
right? I'm not I if I'm super frustrated that I can't see green, I gotta change my glasses to green glasses, right?
Mhm.
So getting mad at yourself or shaming yourself or putting yourself down for having orange thoughts per se, right, is not as a lost cause, right? If you yell at your orange glasses for keep showing you orange, right? Or tell your orange glasses how horrible they are for showing you orange, you're not doing anything different,
Mhm.
right? We have to
Mhm.
change where we're having our thoughts from. We got to change them to the green glasses if we want to see things through green, right? So our thoughts naturally change when we change where the view through which we're looking.
Yeah.
Okay. And that can be a myriad of mental health skills to help you change that. It can be a myriad of spiritual skills. Like for me, sitting in the temple can be a way to change where I'm having my thoughts from. It's very still, it's very quiet. It forces you to do that. Reading my scriptures can be a way of doing that. Sometimes it's not, right? Saying a prayer can be do that, and sometimes it's not, right? Just like some mental health skills work at sometimes and sometimes they don't. You have a toolbox for a reason, right? And so using mindfulness skills like grounding skills, using your senses, neutralizing your thoughts, compassionate thoughts, rapid eye movement, all of those skills that therapists teach you help you change where you're having your thoughts from. As opposed to if I'm in the natural man state and I try to change what thoughts I'm having while I'm being influenced with that, all I'm doing is arguing with that source, and that source is going to come back with another argument, and then I'm arguing and I'm offering a different thought. I'm trying to change that natural man's job description. I'm trying to tell him to stop doing his job. Well, he's not going to stop doing that. There's no reason to argue with him and try and get him to change his thoughts. I change who I'm having them with, and my thoughts naturally change. Our brain naturally knows how to take care of us. It naturally has compassion in your prefrontal cortex. It knows how to regulate and process emotion in
Mhm,
your prefrontal
mhm.
cortex, right? It knows how to have empathy. It knows how to problem solve. It knows how to manage time and organize things. But if we don't have that part of our brain turned on, we can't have those types of thoughts, right? We keep trying to get organized. We keep trying to manage our time from the part of our brain that doesn't know how to do it. It doesn't house memory. It doesn't house those things. It doesn't have those skills. And then we're frustrated because we're trying to get our 2-year-old to do algebra. And it's not meant our that part of our brain's not meant to do that.
It's really kinda switching off the emotional overwhelm
Mhm,
into a spiritual lens, like you said, and
mhm,
then seeing what comes to us and acting more on that
mhm.
spiritual side of things because we kind of do innately know. Is there a bridge between knowing and doing?
Well, agency, right?
Do you think that that can be uh, a difficult little speed bump? If I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, but I don't know how to stop
Yeah.
doing it, and that's where it sounds like that takes time to
And learning, like, you
yeah,
have to
and
reach
learning.
out.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Like, people that come and learn from me, I often say, we're gonna learn a new language together. You're not gonna learn it in a day, like,
Mm.
it's gonna take time. We're gonna take it one step at a time, and we'll do small and simple things to bring great things to pass in your life. It's about very, very small, simple things that you can actually do. Oftentimes that reactionary part of our brain says, I have a problem this big, I need a solution this big, right? I need a solution that matches the size of my problem, and in the reality, you need the smallest simplest solution you would actually do,
Mm.
because when you have a giant problem and you enact a giant solution, you won't do it. You do
Yeah,
fall into that all or nothing thinking, right?
yeah.
So what's the smallest possible thing that you would actually do in this moment? Would I just get out of bed? That's probably a good step. Yeah, if I feel like I can just stand up and get out of bed and maybe put some clothes on for today, I'm starting my momentum in that positive direction, right? What's the smallest possible thing that I can do? If you look, James Clear wrote that book, Atomic Habits,
Mhm,
and he talks about that, the 1% principle, right?
mhm.
Like, what's the 1% thing that you can possibly do? Because if you do 1% and compound that daily, I can't remember the exact percentage, but you're way better off than if you try to do a 50% thing every 60 days, right? You're not making progress if you're trying to do these big, giant things. So
Right.
it's really is, what is the smallest, simplest thing that I can do right now that would make a difference in this moment?
I love that. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves that, like you're saying, those small and simple things, they do build up. And I tell my clients a lot, look at where you've come from
Yeah.
because you may not be at your destination, but
Mhm.
you certainly aren't back where you were.
And that default part of our brain wants to convince us because we're not at the end, we must be at the beginning, and that's not true, but that's a
Right.
mental health skill right there in
Yep.
general, right? Look at your progress. Like, people overcomplicate mental health. right? And they come in and I'm like, "Okay, let's just reflect on the progress of you that you've made,"
Right.
right?
Yeah. There's
Or
that
just
black and
make
white thinking again.
yeah, yeah.
I'm at one of these ends, and it's like, "But you're not.
You're not. No,
You're at
no.
a different
That part of your brain is meant to make you think that. But if you can put on the green glasses, all the little things start coming out, right? And the skill of gratitude. So how much has gratitude been researched in the mental health field,
Oh,
just in
so
general,
big.
right? It's so
So
big. That
big.
it's so helpful, right? But it's also a spiritual skill, right? And forcing ourselves to look at those things to be grateful for is a strategy to return back to that part of your brain. Helps.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if that's the smallest thing you can do, it will work.
Right. But over time, do you find that it
Mhm.
really has to be over time? Because some of us, whether through upbringing or conditioning or both or DNA or whatever, we naturally are pessimistic or
Yeah.
don't see the good. We don't see or maybe we maybe we've come from abusive situations or
Mhm.
something where we have a lot of fear or we have a lot of we don't have a lot of hope.
Mhm.
And so we really have to learn how to change those processed processes to gratitude. And
Yeah.
that can be big for a lot of us to just say, I'm actually having to get the wagon wheel out of that rut that it's
Mhm.
been
Yeah.
in for so long. I
Yeah.
mean, how in your work with this particular, changing the lens thing,
Mhm.
how long do you think it can take to become more for it to become more natural to get away from the natural man?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I often tell people therapy does not fix you. One, because you're not broken. So I'm not going to fix you.
Yeah.
And two, you're learning to change your lifestyle. You're not learning to fix something, then go back to what you were doing. You have to change who you are. You have to change what you're doing with your life, and it has to be a lifestyle change, right? A lot of
Mhm.
the modalities I talk about are you change how you're doing life, right, to become different in that way. And I also look at it like kind of percentages, right? If I'm in my natural man state 80 to 90% of my day, right? And I'm only in my divine state 10 to 20% of my day, that's really exhausting because being in your natural man state is like driving a manual car, like first gear, second gear, but you stay in first gear, but you push the gas pedal to 60 miles an hour.
Mm.
You're burning out your engine,
Yeah, it
right? You
doesn't
can't
work.
stay there for very long, right?
Mm-mm.
So, our goal isn't to get rid of the natural man. Our goal is to change the ratio around. Okay.
Mm.
So now I'm living because of I made these lifestyle changes in my life, right? Like exercise is super important for your mental health. Gratitude is super important. Who you put yourself around is really important. What you put in your body is really important to your mental health, right? You must make lifestyle changes. Maybe it's medication. Maybe it is how you're thinking, but you need to make changes in your lifestyle, right? So that you can live 80 to 90% of your day in your divine state. And when the natural man wakes up 10 to 20% of the time, you're not at the ceiling, right? It's not the straw that broke the camel's back every time it wakes up. It becomes a manageable state that you're in. So it's learning to manage things, not learning to get rid of something. Of
Love
course,
it.
we're healing.
Yeah.
Of course, if we have trauma, we're healing. Of course, if we have environmental situations, we're healing that. That's managing that. But we live in a fallen world by design. There is always going to be the next thing that's coming. And that's where I see women really get frustrated is they're trying to create a life that never has problems. And then they're frustrated when a problem comes.
Yeah.
You are going to have problems. It's learning to prepare mentally for them, right? Fortify your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, so that when these things happen to you, physically, mentally, spiritually, you are fortified and ready for that. You're not already broken down and at the ceiling and, mangled up and you're like, "Oh, there's the great thing that just put me over the edge," right? Even if you're doing well, we got to be working at it and managing our lives.
Right. And I love that more regulating that you just explained too, because it helps us with the perfectionism ideal. Like I can never think this way. And it's like, well, no, you just will.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
and you
just
and you
will.
learn to have compassion about that, right? You
Yeah.
learn to say, "That's okay." Self-compassion is recognizing that you're a human and that those things are gonna happen. You don't walk around yelling at your friends when they make a mistake, right? You start treating yourself the way you would treat other people. You don't, like, beat up yourself or your friends verbally, right?
Mhm.
Yelling at them every time they make a mistake, or every time your two-year-old falls over, you're not like, "You're horrible. I can't believe you fell over when you're learning to walk," you know? Like, you have compassion for them because 'cause they're learning something, they're going through things. You offer support and kindness, but we don't offer that to ourselves. We don't recognize that we're human and that problems are gonna come and that we might need support and help. We just beat ourselves up for having a problem.
Yeah. That is so common. That is
Mhm.
so common. Why do you think that is for us women to do that? To
It's
mentally do that over and over to ourselves?
it's the state in which we're having those thoughts. Remember opposition? It's supposed to sound like that.
Mm.
It's its job. It's supposed to tell us that, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, so what's the point in trying? And, "Oh, this problem happened because you're worthless and you don't have value." It's the opposition inside of us that's supposed to do that. So we're always going to get triggered back into that state where those types of thoughts come, right? But if we
Mhm.
recognize what they are and where they're coming from, they're not as powerful. Like,
And we
it's
can
kind of
dismiss
like
them.
yeah, yeah, you could change where you're having their thoughts from, and
Yeah.
then they don't yeah. Like, if I walk into this room and the air conditioning's turned on to 60 degrees and I'm like, "Man, it's freezing in here." I'm not like, "Man, the air conditioner's broken. I can't believe it's pumping out cold air." No, we just turn the air conditioner off because it's pumping out cold air, right? Like, if your brain is pumping out those negative thoughts, I go turn that part of my brain off because it's doing its job, right? But I don't like, "Oh my gosh, my brain must be broken because it's pumping these types of thoughts out." No, it's the air conditioner doing its job, right? It's supposed to do that. It's looking
Mhm.
for the danger, it's looking for what's wrong. It can't find anything wrong, so now it's gonna blame it on you and because 'cause you're worthless, right? And so it always comes back to that. So we just need to recognize where it's coming from and recognize, "Oh, there's that part of my brain that turned on again." And sometimes that's just powerful. Like, "Oh, that's that opposition part of my brain that just turned on."
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense that it's
Yeah.
pumping that type of thought out.
Yeah, that natural man is it's a bugger.
It is, and it's with us for life.
It's always that struggle. Well, Nikki,
Mhm.
tell us anything else that you need to about
Yeah.
this really neat framework that you've developed.
I just think last thing that came to my mind is every time we experience opposition and we choose something differently, we strengthen that choosing muscle. We
Ooh, I
strengthen
love
that
it.
agency. We also, spiritually speaking, we strengthen our relationship with the Savior because we're choosing Him in that moment. So opposition is the opportunity to grow. Without opposition, we would not grow. That's why we're here on this earth with opposition, is
Yeah,
to grow. You can't grow muscle if you don't lift weight.
that's
You
right.
need opposing force.
Yeah.
So these problems, these difficulties that are happening in our lives are to help us grow, right? But we're not meant to do it alone. We're not meant to just grin and bear it and white knuckle it ourselves and try and figure it out. We're meant to do it with God, with our full divinity, our full brain capacity, with other people. That's how we endure and grow from that.
Yeah,
It's not by doing it alone in silence and isolation.
yeah. It's that resistance training, but with help.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Get a
Well,
spotter.
yeah. Well, Nikki, tell us how we can find you and hear more from you. Tell us about your podcast so that
Yeah.
listeners can come and get more of your information.
Yeah. So on social media, you can find me at LDS Mental Health Co. And my podcast is called the LDS Mental Health Podcast. And I have lots of LDS mental health products in my store on my website, ldsmentalhealthco.com. My most recent product that I created is called a skill tap band. So I have them for different things. So I have like an anxiety one. And it's a little band you wear and you tap your phone to it. It's like tap to pay technology. And it will bring up a skill, one of those regulation skills that you can use within that 2-minute moment to turn your brain to where it's having its thoughts from. So I have one for anxiety, depression, confidence, and focus. So you can tap it and it will be a specific skill for those specific reasons. So you can check out my store. And and then I have a membership that I open up twice a year where I teach all of these skills. So we meet once a month. I teach you a skill, you go practice it for the month. We have a community where you can come ask me questions in between. And so I do group coaching in there with these skills.
That's great. I just wasn't raised with a phone, and so I forget how helpful they can be.
Right? Yeah, I know. I'm trying to work with it, not against it.
Niki, thank you for being here, and I look so forward to working with you in the future. I'm really glad we got to meet, and I've enjoyed this so much, and thank you so much for sharing this wonderful message with us today. So let's sum up this episode with Niki Olsen with 10 takeaway thought pockets. Number 1, the faith disconnect. It's not that you've lost your faith. You're just not connected to the power of it in that moment. When anxiety or overwhelm hits, the first lie we often believe is that something is wrong with us, spiritually. But disconnect is not the same as absence. Faith doesn't disappear, it gets drowned out by noise, fear, and dysregulation. The work isn't to go find faith again, but to remove what's blocking your access to it. Niki referred to this as a pavilion, something that's preventing you from reattaching or reconnecting to the faith base that has helped you so much in the past. Number 2, you are not the enemy. The natural man isn't broken, it's doing its job. You just don't get to let it drive. That harsh, critical, fear-based voice, it's not a flaw, it's kind of a function. It's designed to scan for danger, to protect or react, but when it takes over, it distorts identity and truth. Healing comes when you recognize the voice without obeying it, when you step out of the driver's seat it is taking, and then consciously choose a different guide. It's a way of evaluating and asking yourself, is this the natural man? Is this something that spiritually is good for me, or do I need to shift and make some adjustments? Number 3, change the source. Niki taught us that you don't change your life by arguing with your thoughts. You change your life by changing who you're having your thoughts with. Trying to fix negative thoughts while still in a reactive state keeps you stuck in the same loop. The real shift happens when you change your state, when you move from survival mode into connection. Niki used this as the natural man versus the spiritual or higher spiritual self. Your thoughts naturally soften, organize, and align without force. It's not about control, it's about connection and listening to the healthier, more spiritual message. Number 4, survival brain. If your brain is in survival mode, it will always look for a problem. And if it can't find one, it might make you the problem. Our brain loves to solve puzzles, so it's constantly trying to figure them out. The survival brain is wired to detect threat. When it doesn't relax, it redirects. Suddenly, you're the issue. Your worth, your effort, your identity all come under attack. Recognizing this pattern is powerful because it helps you stop internalizing what is actually just a misfiring protection system. Number 5, lifestyle healing. Niki related that healing isn't about fixing yourself because you're not broken. It's about changing how you live one small doable step at a time. There is no moment where you are suddenly done. Healing is a lifestyle, a series of small, intentional choices that gradually shift your baseline. The nervous system responds to consistency. What matters most is not the size of the step, but that you actually take it and continue to try. Number 6, shift the ratio. The goal is to spend more time of your life in your divine state. This is a regulation issue. You will always have moments of reactivity, of fear or doubt. That's part of being human. The goal isn't perfection, it's proportion. As you build skills and awareness, you spend less time overwhelmed and more time grounded, connected, and clear. That shift alone changes everything about how you experience your life and could change how others experience you. Number 7, start small. I loved how Niki shared that you don't need a solution as big as your problem. You need the smallest step you will actually take. When everything feels overwhelming, your brain demands a massive fix, but big solutions often lead to shutdown and avoidance. Progress comes from simplicity, just getting out of bed, taking a breath, choosing one next right thing. Small actions build momentum, and momentum builds change. Remember, by small and simple things, our great things come to pass. God accomplishes His purposes through small, consistent, and seemingly simple means rather than dramatic or obvious ones. Number 8, too much noise. If your mind feels chaotic, it's like trying to hear God at a loud concert. He's still there, but you can't hear Him over the noise. Disconnection often feels like abandonment, but it's really just overwhelm. It can be overwhelmed by overfunctioning. It can be overwhelmed by feeling unworthy. But when your mind and your body are flooded, clarity becomes inaccessible. Learning to quiet the internal noise through stillness, grounding, or intentional pause creates space for connection again. God doesn't move, we do. But let me put a caveat on this. If you're experiencing somatic or physical symptoms when you are trying to calm yourself, if you're having flashbacks, if you're feeling like you're going to panic, if you are trying some of these mindfulness skills and they just don't seem to work, you could be experiencing trauma or complex trauma. We don't want to minimize this. We want to get you help. If you're experiencing things where your heart races and certain thoughts make it worse, not better, and then you just feel shame and blame because you can't make this work, see someone who is trauma-informed and can help you work through that. It may be that your body is telling you you need to dive a little bit deeper and get professional help. Number 9, built for growth. Opposition isn't proof that something's gone wrong. It's the exact condition required for growth. Pain, struggle, and emotional discomfort aren't signs of failure. They are part of the design. Just like muscles require resistance to grow, so do we. The presence of opposition doesn't mean you're off track. It often means you've been given the exact opportunity needed to become stronger, wiser, and more aligned. Trials create growth. It's not always fun, but usually we can look back with gratitude about what we've learned through the hard times. Number 10, not alone. You were never meant to white-knuckle your healing alone. Growth happens with God, with others, and with support. Isolation intensifies struggle. Whether through therapy, community, or spiritual connection, healing expands when it's shared. Support doesn't make you weak. It makes growth sustainable. You were designed to need connection, and allowing it in is part of the healing itself. A higher power is often used in mental health. It's often used in healing addiction, in trauma, and many other experiences in life that need healing. When we invite a higher power into our healing, our suffering doesn't just become something to survive, it becomes something that can hold meaning. It doesn't always take the pain away, but it changes how we carry it. A higher power offers perspective when we feel lost, strength when we feel depleted, and companionship when we feel alone. It reminds us that our struggles are not random or wasted, but can be a part of our life's design, a part of growth, refinement, and becoming. In the hardest moments, when solutions feel out of reach, connection or something greater can be the bridge that helps us move forward. It gives us a place to anchor, a reason to keep going, and a belief that we are being guided, even when we cannot see where the path leads. Our self-talk is powerful. This episode is very much about what we are telling ourselves, who we are listening to. Niki stated it is the source. I love the power in that. The source of who we're listening to, the source of who our self-talk is coming from. It's a great message and can really help us stay connected to our higher power. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Hungry for Healing. Remember, winning the race is not about finishing first, but is about rising each time you fall. So get up, get up, get up, and win the race.
The views and opinions expressed on the Hungry for Healing podcast by guests, hosts, or anyone appearing on the show are solely their own and do not represent the views of the Edify Group, its owners, employees, affiliates, or any other individual or organization. All content provided on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional mental health treatment, therapy, medical advice, diagnosis, or care. If you are in need of support, please seek the services of a qualified mental health or medical professional. The podcast and its creators make no guarantees regarding the accuracy, completeness, or applicability of any information shared and assume no liability for any actions taken based on the content of this program.